This is the Entrepreneur on Campus podcast. Let's go. On each episode, we talk about a new industry or market, including the entrepreneurial opportunities, the pains, and the surprises of that industry. Listen, the business world is so broad, and we are here to dissect all of the different ways that entrepreneurs make money.
Software, you make it one time and sell it 1,000 times.
E-com spaces, man, those things sell for like an 8x multiple. It's ridiculous.
Three main ways that we make money, and the primary one is actually ad sales.
The goal is usually to exit within 3 to 7 years.
I'm your host, Matthew Brown, and I've created this podcast to help you discover hidden opportunities. Thank you for tuning in, and here is today's episode. Welcome to the Entrepreneur on Campus podcast. I'm so excited to be here. Today I'm here with Derrin Hill. Derrin, I'm so excited to have you on here.
Hey, great to be with you, Matthew. Super excited to be with you.
So before we dive into the interview, I just want to read a quick bio about Derrin. So Derrin Hill is a Missouri farm boy with an amazing wife and 5 great kids that are his top priority and the favorite part of his day. He is an incurable entrepreneur and loves to create products, growth, revenue, opportunities for individuals to thrive and grow, and he just loves creating these great organizations. He started and co-founded 10 companies, with RevRoad being the 10th, and that's the one that he's currently working on. 2 of the 10 were failures. A few of them were singles, a few of them were doubles, and others were far better. So, Derrin, honestly, I'm so excited to have you here. Obviously, you've experienced a lot of professional success, and that's something that, as an aspiring entrepreneur myself, and as my audience is also a lot of aspiring entrepreneurs, I think that it's great to have you here as a role model.
It's great to be here with a fellow entrepreneur. I love what you're doing.
Yeah.
I love how you're spreading the word and helping people build entrepreneurship. It's actually really important. A lot of people don't know this, but entrepreneurship is on the decline.
Really?
Yeah. And so not here in this particular area, but across the country. So what you're doing can really help make a difference.
Good.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. So first question I'd like to ask you, specifically talking about RevRoad. So what industry are you in, and what's your market?
That's really awesome. So we are in the business building industry. Okay. So we build machines, if you will, that are actually businesses that create new products, new opportunities, new revenue streams, in some cases, entirely new markets. And we do it in we have 2 simple things. We help these entrepreneurs grow their companies, and we help them keep control of their companies so they can't lose them through naivete.
To venture capitalists.
To anyone who might want to take advantage of some new entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So you help companies grow.
Yes.
And so what role do you guys play in that? Because you said you bring on entrepreneurs.
Sure.
What role do you play in helping their companies grow?
Well, so we do a number of things. We have these 12 service areas that we provide services in. And these are real deliverables, Matthew K. So this isn't like, come to my program, read my book, I'll give you a pat on the back, and that's my mentoring. Good on you. Keep going. It's not that at all. It's actually in each of these 12 service areas, we're giving them real things that they need. So we have our own in-house legal counsel, incredible legal mind, Joel Buse, Harvard-trained attorney, extensive experience as a corporate attorney and in trial law as well. And so when an entrepreneur comes to us and works with RevRoad, we help them with their organization, making sure they get chartered correctly, use the correct form of business for what they're trying to accomplish, make sure they have all their docs done right, cap tables correct, make sure all of the legal agreements are in place, IP gets protected, handle issues as they arise if that's necessary.
So you have a partnership with this legal entity?
No, they're actually part of RevRoad.
They're part of RevRoad.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's part of your service.
Yeah. All of these things are internal to RevRoad.
Everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not an outsourced agency. So So that's legal. Same thing with helping companies raise capital. We do that very successfully. We also help our companies that are part of the portfolio with software development. We have a software dev team. We've got engineering staff that we make physical products, all the way from somebody sketched something on a napkin, all the way through to full automated production and supply chain logistics, inventory management, all that kind of stuff with, industrial design and mechanical and electrical engineering, firmware, prototyping, sourcing, all those kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you take on any company, or do you just take on specific types of companies? Do they have to be young, or what are you kind of looking for?
Good question. It's interesting that you asked that, because so many groups, they focus on a sector or an industry, or they might focus in on a stage or size of company. For us, we have a very defined focus, but our focus is based around the business model. And so we have 24 criteria that we rank, and based on the mix of those criteria, we know whether or not we can help that company scale and scale quickly. So, not to go into all those things, but there's a certain margin profile we look for. There are what we call U&D, unique and defensible aspects of the business, which can include IP, but it's far broader than that. We look for 5 specific H's that define the kind of skill and character that are in the team, and we score that. We look for recurring revenue. There are a number of things we look for, and then we stack rank those things. So companies apply to be a part of RevRoad. When we started a little less than 2 years ago, we thought that we would have somewhere around a half a dozen a quarter. So a half a dozen companies apply each quarter, and we would bring in 2. Every quarter that's gone up and up and up in terms of the number of applicants, and this quarter we have 54 that have applied. Applicants, and we'll bring in 3, maybe 4.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a whole process for that lets us identify where we can be of the most help and which companies we can really move the needle for. And for all the ones that don't get in, we're very tuned in to helping them as well. So we have a number of public things that we do that are free. You've attended some of those, I think. With RevU and RevUp. It's our way of giving back to the community, and those are super valuable services we provide, and we do them for any entrepreneur and on an ongoing basis. So
an entrepreneur, they join RevRoad, and you give them a workspace. They work here at RevRoad. They can. They don't need to. And so, do you take just local companies, or do you take nationwide?
Nationwide, and actually last quarter we brought on our first international company, a great company in Africa called Tuverol. In fact, can I tell you a little bit about Tuverol?
Sure, please.
So Tuverol was a company that the great young entrepreneur who started this, his name is Hope. He's a Harvard grad, and he heard about RevRoad when he was in DC, and was referred to our competition, our entrepreneurship competition. So he came and he joined it, and he had his eyes on a specific prize. He wanted to win the fan favorite award. And this guy, he knows how to hustle. And so all the votes were coming in for each of the different companies, and he did all the typical things that all the others were doing. But in addition to that, through his work with the company, he had made a connection with the Minister of Transportation in Zimbabwe. So he tweeted at the Minister of Transportation there in the country of Zimbabwe and said, "Hey, I'm at this competition. You know that we've got this great technology. Could you please tweet out that I'm at this competition, and here's the link for people to go vote?" And so everyone else came in with hundreds of votes, and he came in like just miles ahead, orders of magnitude ahead with thousands. And he clearly won what he came here for. One of many examples of the kind of grit that he has, which is one of our core values: grit, growth, and plus one. And his and so he applied to be a part of RevRoad, and he is today, and we're helping him grow.
So you have 12 deliverables for somebody, and what does the entrepreneur give?
The entrepreneur gives equity, a minority share of equity. So if you think about that for a minute, so we're providing these resources, these deliverables for 2 years. And
is it always 2 years?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Those are pretty substantial. Well, unless they sell their company in the meantime. In every single case, where they look at what they're being provided through RevRoad, and they go and they shop it with agencies outside, they come back and go, this is a screaming deal on a cost basis. Mm-hmm. But on a value basis, it's worth 10, 20, 30 times that. Mm-hmm. And so it just completely changes their trajectory. And they love that we're not reaching into their pocket and pulling cash out.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that much cash, right? And they need to hang on to that. Mm-hmm. And our entrepreneurs also love the fact that what that does is it creates an alignment, right? The alignment that we have with our entrepreneurs is super tight. So if they don't succeed, we get nothing, right? And in fact, our costs aren't even covered, right? Because we're investing in that. We're investing in them by covering all those costs during that 2-year time period. So creates some really great synergies. It creates some really wonderful opportunities to know that we're in their corner and to see that we're willing to work.
If they win, you win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. And you take the same amount of equity for every company, or is it different with every deal?
No, it varies. So every company is different. Their needs vary. We'll have some that will come in and ask for 10 or 11 of those services across those 2 years. We'll have others that will come in and ask for 3 or 4. And so it is different depending on each of those.
Very cool.
Yeah.
What would you say are 3 pros and then 3 cons of being in this industry that you're in?
Oh, wow. Well, the pros are easy. And the cons are abundant. So the pros are genuinely easy. Working side by side with highly motivated, very passionate, very capable, hardworking, wonderful people who are creating. They're creating realities that support families. They're creating products that change industries. They're creating entire markets that weren't there before, right? And they're doing it while risking it all. It's crazy, but so exciting, so energizing, and so inspiring. You know, I mean, you've been there. I've been there. It's a different world when you've got, 36 employees counting on you and their families counting on you to make payroll. And you've got to innovate, and you've got to innovate better and faster and bigger than the big multinational, well-funded, multi-billion-dollar organizations. And you got to beat them. It's crazy. But we do that, and we do that every day here. And so, there's a thrill there. There's an inspiration there that's hard to beat. It's not just punching a clock. It's making a big difference. And if you look at all the stats of where job creation happens. Job creation happens around innovation, and innovation happens around entrepreneurship. So it's got to be there. So that's one of the big pros is working with the people that I work with every day.
Yeah.
I love that. I love seeing, so one of the things that makes me happy is making other people's dreams come true. And that's always been the case throughout my life. And so I love finding out what motivates them, what they're working towards. I love to understand what makes them tick and feel fulfillment and meaning, and then pursuing those things with them and helping them achieve those things. That's very rewarding. We've sold several companies for hundreds of millions of dollars. Okay. and in my career, and it's always wonderful to give, kind of a wonderful, successful investor a great return. It's especially wonderful. One of the biggest pros is to be able to go to someone who gave you $50,000 of their $250,000 retirement account and said, "I believe in you. Here's my check." Mm-hmm. And then to go back to them not too long later and say, "Here's a 20x return on your investment. Thanks you for believing in me." Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's awesome.
It is awesome.
That's great. What are some of the cons? Are there some cons in this industry?
I really love to sleep and don't get much.
How much do you sleep every night?
Not much, but I sleep well. I just don't sleep much. Uh-huh. There's just a lot to do, and my mind is constantly, going there. Uh-huh. So I'm an early morning guy for sure, because of that. And
what time do you wake up?
Way too early.
You don't want to give me any specifics?
It's like 4 in the morning.
4 in the morning.
Yes.
You're going to bed at 11, 12?
Yes.
Okay.
But I love an early start. It's good. If it's during any time, but icy cold winter weather, I'm hiking the Y every morning or doing some other kind of outdoor fun activity to start my day and to ponder. And, it's
so
awesome.
There's one con.
That's one con.
You're just so involved and engaged in it that you have a hard time getting enough sleep.
True. Another con is, there's a lot of risk associated with it, with entrepreneurship, and it doesn't always turn out the way you hope. And sometimes it goes down in flames. And so, there's no one who enjoys that. There's no one who thinks that that's a bonus in their life. And while every single one of us who are, accredited investors and savvy and understand that that's part of the process and it will happen, it doesn't make it easier because it still involves people and it still involves things that are important. And so that's a con is when it doesn't work. And I'd say the third one, let's see. All right. So this is a third con. It's not readily apparent to most people the level of effort that has to be put in to make it work. And so when it does work, people often think you're lucky. And there's truth to that. There is some luck involved, right? Or blessing or serendipity or all of those for sure. And like I said earlier, we all stand on the shoulders of giants who came before and made it possible to live in a country and an economic system where this can be done. But at the end of the day, most people are not entrepreneurs because it is really, really, really hard. And so when it does work, it's kind of a bummer to have people go, "Wow, you're lucky."
You're like, what about all those hours that I spent?
Yeah. Or the team, that's my focus, is that the team spent, or that, the co-founders sacrificed, or that the investors put in well beyond their dollars. That's the thing I like to highlight and recognize, so it doesn't become a con. Yeah. How's that?
I love it. Great. Referring to RevRoad, what's the primary sales channel? How do you guys acquire all of these? Not acquire, but how do you acquire your clients? How do these people come in, and how do they find you?
Yeah, good question. So, I referenced earlier just the dramatic numbers that apply here, which is great. We love that. And I can answer your question in 2 words: Amy Caldwell. She's a co-founder here at RevRoad. She's our executive director, and she's a dynamo. In fact, we have a relatively substantial budget that we set aside for marketing RevRoad itself. And we haven't spent a dime in that budget because Amy has built incredible relationships with organizations that are kind of the pillars of the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in this area and of business growth and development. So, Governor's Office of Economic Development, Silicon Slopes, UTC, UVU, BYU, Utah State, University of Utah, all the universities and colleges. Incredible groups that are all around that foster entrepreneurship, from accelerators to incubators. Pando Labs is a great partner and friend with wonderful banks and financial institutions that are fostering entrepreneurship, like Central Bank. We're super proud to be partners with them, and so those kinds of audiences in this local area make it possible for us to it's spread through word of mouth. Yeah. And frankly, so that's how it spread. And today, so one of my favorite internal metrics is how many of our applicants are referrals from our current portfolio companies.
Very cool.
It is our largest source of applicants, which says something, right, about how our current portfolio companies feel and their desire to share that with others. So we really love that. In addition to that, we get asked to speak all across the country. I was at Virginia Tech recently, at University of Wyoming, speaking at the same event with the governor. There are a lot of places that are trying to foster entrepreneurship. And so that's where we get several of the companies that are not Utah-based as well.
If somebody were to start, so your company, it's not an incubator, it's not an accelerator.
No.
What do you call it exactly?
We're a venture services firm.
A venture services firm. So how does one go about starting a venture services firm? How did you even do that?
Yeah. You first have a lot of pain.
That's how it starts.
Right? I mean, and any entrepreneurial venture starts with trying to solve a problem.
Yeah.
You feel a problem is there and you want to solve it. And so myself and my 5 awesome co-founders here at RevRoad have had wonderful experiences starting companies, scaling companies, and doing it in the U.S., doing it internationally in a variety of sectors. And as we kind of coalesce together around some of our nonprofit work that we do together, we found that we had similar joys and great experiences, and also similar frustrations, and saw that reflected in the experiences of a lot of our entrepreneurial friends too. We saw situations that just shouldn't be that way, where entrepreneurs had done well and then lost control of their company because they were naive, didn't recognize what was taking place. And we thought, you know what, we could solve some of that. And we saw others' companies, as well as some of our own, that failed and didn't have to fail. Like, if they had had the right resource, the right experience, the right people at the right time, they could have made it and been really great. And so we started coalescing around this kind of meta idea. Okay, if we've done that before in individual companies, like work on the problems and fix them and grow them, what could we do in the ecosystem? And so taking that approach, we started doing interviews across the country with incubators, with accelerators, with VCs, with private equity groups, angel investors, entrepreneurs that had succeeded, entrepreneurs that had failed, different government entities that were trying to foster entrepreneurship, and nonprofit groups that were trying to do the same. And we saw patterns emerge on why companies failed, when they failed. And then we started putting in place our take on what could be done to preempt those kinds of things. And then we built systems around that.
That's how you built the different services that you deliver. Yeah. Were there a lot of solutions at the time that existed at other companies like yours?
We have yet to find others that are like RevRoad. We know that there are venture services firms. There are a few of them. Typically what they'll be an accelerator or incubator that has added on like a dev shop, and they'll trade some dev work for an equity stake.
Yeah.
Or it'll be one of those organizations or a funding group that will put in place a marketing piece or they'll bring in an outside agency to provide some service for some discount. That's pretty much the closest we've seen to this. Because it takes a huge investment to do this.
Yeah.
And it takes a lot of commitment and belief to make this happen.
Well, just the fact that you have all of the services internal is pretty incredible, because I feel like almost every agency, they just try to focus on their little niche and then outsource everything else. Right? So
They do.
That's awesome.
And for them, their motive has to be the profit in that service from that one niche agency. And when they do that, it's hard for their incentives to be well aligned with the long-term success of that entrepreneur's company.
That's sage advice. Very true. Taking a little twist.
Yeah.
So what are let's say that you were thrown back a couple of years ago and you're 20 years old. So not that long.
2 or 3 years ago.
And you were the same person. You had the aspiration to be an entrepreneur. You hadn't started a company at the time. What would you do with your time? Would you be in college? Would you be at a boot camp? Would you be building a business? What would you do with your time?
Yeah, good question. So I am a big fan of getting as much education, formal education, as you can. I think that to a large degree, that's how the world judges us, just like without knowing us. And so I think that there's value in that alone, but there's also value in what's taught there. I mean, if you're a lifelong learner, then college is like a playground. It's awesome. And you can learn so much about so many things, and it can be fun and exciting. And so I actually think that that's a real positive. And frankly, for me, that's kind of how I felt in college. It was a joy. I have amazing parents, and they're very supportive. But neither of them finished their college degree, and that was kind of normal at their time. But I grew up on a farm in Missouri, and there weren't a lot of options for me. So my first college was State Fair Community College. I got accepted to Brigham Young University, but I couldn't afford to go there. And so I learned that a State Fair Community College, this little podunk hick school, can create an incredible atmosphere for education, and it created a lifelong love of learning for me. In addition to what my parents had already built into me for that. So I'm a big believer in that. At the same time, I don't think that waiting to start a venture is a great idea. So my first business, actually 4 businesses, were while I was in college in my undergraduate program, and with some awesome co-founders that I just love. And
Quick question: were they the same age as you, your co-founders? They were in college as well.
Yeah.
You didn't have anyone that was older.
We were all in college. Aaron Foltz, Sean and Julie Noble, great folks. And
for all 4?
No, it was different. That was the first one and the second one.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Looking back, I mean, we had 2 credit cards between the 4 of us, and none of us had like any real money, and we took some crazy risks. We rented out a t-shirt screen printing shop from midnight to 5 a.m. when they weren't using it, and taught ourselves how to use it, and printed t-shirts and sold them and made a profit. And then we started a fax advertising business, advertising lunch specials, and built a software program around that where we would designate geographical areas that were within walking distance of the restaurants that were advertising with us. And then before we went to class, we'd like hit start and it would start faxing these folks, these businesses, those specials. But then we had other ones that I did with other partners that didn't work. We had a financial services business. That was a total fail. Our fault. We did some validation and testing, and just took the word for a friend that he had done this testing for us, these calls while we were in class. And after we had invested the money and moved forward based on those tests, it failed miserably. And we went back, and one of our wives wisely said, "Did you ever check and see if he actually made those calls?" And we hadn't. Mm-hmm. So we looked at the phone bill, and he did not, and admitted to it. And so that was our fault. We didn't verify. We just trusted that this great report he gave us was true. So that was a big fail. And then, but a valuable lesson. And then after that, we started a stucco company, doing residential and commercial exteriors. And at its height, we had 50 employees working for us. That was great. So yeah, I believe that our risk profile is usually lower when we're younger. You know, when I started my first business, I didn't have a family to support. I didn't have a mortgage to pay. I didn't have, all those things.
Right.
So why not?
Yeah. Right. Because it's a big risk later on if you have a family and you give up your steady salary to go and try something that could potentially fail.
It's a totally different risk profile. Yeah.
Do you feel like you were born an entrepreneur? Or is it something that you stumbled upon?
Good question. So it's the whole nature versus nurture question. And I'll share this with you. When people ask me at breakfast, do I want milk or orange juice? I say yes. So I don't love false choices. And I think the nature versus nurture is a false choice. It's both, right? I mean, we come with our own personality and package to this earth. And I definitely have seen that with my own children. They're wonderful and varied. And yet nurture does make a big difference. And my parents nurtured me to believe that I could accomplish anything, that I could, I shouldn't say the word anything. They taught me that I could dream big and achieve those dreams. And that I should be willing to take calculated risks to do that.
Yeah. Awesome. So this is another question that I'll leave it up to you whether or not to answer it.
Okay. Sounds scary.
It's a little bit scary. Are there any business ideas that you have that maybe you just don't have the time to start and you don't think you will?
Totally.
That you feel comfortable sharing with the audience?
I have a whole file of them.
Maybe just one or two.
Oh man. Let me share this. Okay. There's a business idea I had, and I knew I wasn't going to start it because I knew I was going to do RevRoad. But fortunately, someone else came along and they had started it. And I now help them grow their company.
That's cool.
So spending a good portion of my career in education and educational technology, I knew one of the biggest challenges on earth was helping people learn to speak conversationally. And most people can learn to write and read really well in a classroom, but repeating a dialogue out of a textbook in a classroom in a contrived setting doesn't help build fluent conversational skills. And so one of the things I wanted to do after I helped build Imagine Learning was build a new ed tech company that would do that would give people a chance to practice speaking anywhere on earth. And I shelved that when RevRoad came along because I realized this is where I need to be. This is where I'm going to be of most use to the world. And fortunately, in one of our application groups in one of our cohorts, we had a great group called Hollow that came and applied. It's led by June Bay, Ben Dent, and Mike Curtis. And guess what? They wanted to teach 1.6 billion people around the earth how to speak conversationally. And
same problem.
Yep. So we help them grow now, which is awesome.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Any other ideas? Just one more. I love hearing these.
That's probably good for now.
Right.
Maybe a future podcast, I'll share another one. How's that?
We'll do.
Okay.
Last two questions. Favorite business book?
Oh man, that's too hard. Okay.
I'll give you two.
I'm going to go non-conventional on you, and then I'll share a conventional answer. Is that okay?
That's fair.
Just today, I was in a meeting. I had someone call from the East Coast with a very important call I needed to take. And I was on that call. And while I was on that call, so I'm like stepping out of a meeting on a call, and this voice inside me said, "See that guy? Go talk to him." And he was leaving, like he was leaving the function because it had just ended. And I was trying to juggle, what do I do? Do I focus on the call? Do I go and do the mix and mingle after the meeting? Do I go follow this guy into the parking lot and be some weird creeper stalker guy, right? Because this voice in my head is saying, go do that.
Yeah.
I've learned to trust that voice. And so I followed him, went out to the parking lot and said, hey, we didn't meet. Can I introduce myself? Tell me about you. That led to an hour-long interview, and will probably lead to that person being a part of our team. And I can't count the number of times that voice has told me the thing I should do when I didn't know what it was beforehand. So there's a super famous guy that a lot of people know. His name's Nephi, and he has this thing he said where he said, I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things I should do. So that's the main book I follow. Okay. Which is kind of like this book of current revelation happening in me, all the time. And so I found when I follow that, it works out awesome. One thing I've learned is that, I did work hard for the successes that we've had in the past and that we're having now and we'll have in the future. Definitely worked hard. Definitely have grit, definitely studied and learned and applied and executed and all those things. But at the end of the day, I'm not smart enough to achieve those things on my own. And I have incredible teams that I work with. And even with all of those incredible people, we weren't smart enough to achieve all those things. So I give lots of the glory and credit for those things to that higher power and to that book of constantly seeking guidance and getting help.
Mm-hmm. That inner voice that's telling you what to do.
Yeah. So that's probably my main book. Mm-hmm. Now I'll go conventional. Okay. Love multipliers. Liz Wiseman. If any of the podcast listeners have not read her work yet, she's amazing. It's probably one of the best high level books on leadership, because if you get that one thing to be a multiplier instead of a diminisher, a lot of other things just fall into place.
Love it.
Yeah.
Last question I have for you is...
Wait, you said 2 books.
2 books. All right.
Do I get the second?
Go ahead.
Okay. So this is my most recent one, Trap Tales. You might know something about that one. Mm-hmm. It is one of my favorites now. David Covey has a very unique way of helping people remove obstacles from their lives and overcome challenges that otherwise block them from achieving. And to me, that is that's an enormous human good, and it's super helpful for me and for my team. So yeah, there we go. That's
awesome.
The second one. How's that?
We had him on here just a little bit ago too.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, awesome.
Yeah.
I'm following in good footsteps.
So last question now is, if you have one life lesson to share with aspiring entrepreneurs, what is that?
Oh man, you're getting all deep and heavy.
We'll finish off with this one.
Wow. All right. So it would just be this. We're here to act, not be acted upon. Kind of goes back to an earlier conversation you and I had on responsibility.
Yeah.
Right? Each of us has the ability to affect things and people and circumstances for enormous good. Mm-hmm. And it can have incredible ripples of positive consequences. And so that's probably the most important life lesson I would share with entrepreneurs, is that you'll never know like where those ripples go and how far they spread out and how many people they affect for good. But you'll certainly never make it happen if you don't try to do it. Mm-hmm. And so you should. Don't ask, don't get. Don't venture. You'll never succeed. What looks like secure, what looks like safe, usually isn't. And so there's a huge benefit to going out and creating that future and creating that vision and creating those opportunities for others. That's what I would say. How's that?
Love it.
Okay.
Thank you. Derrin Hill, RevRoad.
Hey, thanks. Appreciate it, Matthew.
Thank you guys again for listening. I love you. Have a good one.